Hello, hello, my labial legends. Welcome back to the lounge. Today we're talking about breakups. It's a mad bummer of a topic. I've got several personal experiences that I may or may not go into that, have completely devastated me. So, not to make light of breakups being a bummer, they're actually fucked. But we're gonna try to leave you with some constructive and helpful strategies and tips to kind of like heal and recover from breakups. And I've got Cole Zesiger. Did I say that right?
Yep,
Okay,
perfect.
nice. Who's a breakup and relationship coach specializing in breakup recovery, dating advice, and relationship coaching. After a divorce at 23 and another breakup soon after, he began sharing his journey on social media, growing to over 750,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and more. He's coached more than 2,000 people through heartbreak, helping them either rekindle relationships in a healthy way or move on with peace. His practical approach blends psychology, attachment theory, and real world strategies to guide people from heartbreak to healing. His debut book, X's and Numbers: The Breakup Advice You Don't Want to Hear, offers a proven roadmap to rebuild self worth, master communication, and create healthy, lasting love. And I think you can pre order the book. Is that correct?
Yep, I've got it pre-ordered on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you buy books.
So, all right. Well, welcome, Cole. I'm super excited to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to be here.
So, yeah, today we're going to talk about heartbreak. We're going to talk about how to recover from even the worst breakups, because I know that it can feel like you're never going to recover when you're really in the depths of it. And I don't believe that we talk about grief enough in general. And we certainly don't talk about or acknowledge how hard it is to grieve someone who is still alive. It's generally kind of like understood in our society that when someone dies, it's a big deal, right? And, it's cause for paralyzing, soul shattering grief. And so people kind of get around you. But when a relationship ends, I don't feel like there's nearly as much, I guess, understanding or compassion for how shattering that can be. And I think when a relationship ends, that's a death. For someone, it might just feel like a small death or an expected ending if the relationship wasn't as significant or long term. Although I would argue that the length of time you've been together doesn't always have that much bearing on how difficult the loss can feel. So I don't want to invalidate people who are going through massive feels after quite a short but intense relationship. But then, other cases when it's a really, really, really big, very unexpected breakup, perhaps a breakup of someone that you thought was your life partner, it's a huge death then. It's the death of a dream, it's the death of a life that you thought you were going to lead, it's the death of, a blueprint that you had of this life that you wanted with that person. Sometimes you lose friends and community in the process. Sometimes you lose a family, like your ex partner's family who you'd become part of. Sometimes it feels like the loss of your best friend and your partner in life and love. And it can actually just be a huge kind of existential crisis where you've lost this identity that you've built and carried for years as a partner, as this person's partner. And for some women, it can even be the loss of the possibility to have a family, if that was your last chance to have a baby. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that it can feel like a death. If you live together, it means you have to dissolve the home that you've created together. You have to move house, which is awful. So it's like your whole reality is just being ripped out from under you. And having to face this new reality, having to recalibrate, it's painful and it's hard and it's jarring. Going no contact, I feel like, is super brutal, but often necessary. But we don't talk about how agonizing it is and how unnatural it feels and the withdrawals that we get when you go from like sharing your life with someone and making future plans to not even speaking to them and just being a total like lone ranger out in the world on your own. So this is a huge rant. I understand that. We will get into the questions in a second, but I guess personally, like I ride through breakups super hard, like hard. I'm not an expert at this. I do not cope well with breakups. I'm still kind of really feeling my most major one, which was a bit over 2 years ago now. And I just have often felt that it's like really ridiculous how little society emphasizes um what a massive deal it is. And like, yeah, it doesn't feel like our society, at least, really empathizes with people that are going through it. There's like this common advice of like, oh, you've just got to move on, or like get under someone new to get over someone. And it's like, whoa, you wouldn't fucking tell someone that if like someone they loved had just died. And for me, it feels almost on par with that, but sort of, it's a different flavor of grief and death. So I just wanted to like begin the episode with like a validation for those who have a really hard time with breakup, because that's so normal and it's so natural and that's so me. I am in it. I'm in the trenches with you. And when you consider that we're wired for connection, we're wired for attachment, you know, it makes a lot of sense that breakups can feel so horrific. You're not weak, you're not too sensitive, you're just having a really human experience. And yeah, you're experiencing withdrawal and a lot of deaths. So today I've got Cole. He's an expert. We're going to help you navigate the different stages of like breakup and grief, and like hopefully give you some supportive strategies and insights on how to heal from a breakup. And without further ado, because I know that was a massive rant, but this is something very alive for me. Yeah, I guess like what what would you say, Cole, like if someone is, come to this podcast, they're kind of semi-fresh out of the breakup, like it's relatively fresh, it's still quite charged for them, and they're really struggling. What do you want to say to them, or what might be the first step, say if they came to you to work with you, like that you begin with to, yeah, get the healing process started?
I really like your rant. That's a great start. And one
Good,
of the
thanks.
first things that slows people down is diving into shame and beating themselves up, especially if it has been a long time. Like if they're like in your position that it's been 2 years, the culture does lead to beating yourself up about that. Say there must be
Mm,
something wrong with me. Why do I feel this deeply still for someone? I clearly see they're not good for me. Maybe your logic has already figured it out that you're like, yeah, this wouldn't work, but your heart is still stuck there. So you just try to beat the crap out of your heart until it lines up with your brain. And that doesn't really
mm,
work. So that's the first, is accepting. I like telling people that if they're hurting that bad, that's awesome. That's evidence of a strength they have, that they can love in an extremely deep way. So it's cool. But the very first thing is creating space to heal from the person. So you mentioned no contact a second ago. I talk about that a lot because I see the people who get stuck the worst are the people who keep talking to their ex in some sort of
mm.
way immediately after the breakup, whether they become friends or do weekly check-ins, or it could also just be if they've got social media or all these pictures that remind them. Anything that keeps you from accepting that this is where you are right now. You can keep believing maybe you'll get back together in the future, maybe you'll move on. Like that's hard to just completely shut off everything on day one, but you begin to heal when you accept, at least for right now, you're actually broken up. That's actually what's happening right now. So to start that healing period, you do need to take real space from your ex that you don't talk, but also detox from pictures, things they've given you, things that remind you of them, at least for a little bit. Put all those into hidden folders or into the closet in a box.
Technical difficulties. Yes, hard agree with that. It is like, so yeah, one of my pipe dream business ideas that I'm never actually going to do, but that would be incredible. Everyone's got their multi-billion dollar idea. My friend and I came up with this app. I mean, fuck, maybe it exists, but it's called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Phone. And it's either an app or a
Love it.
service where it goes through your phone, your Spotify, everything, your photos, like, and it just scours through everything and puts all of the reminders, the photos, the memories, the songs, the playlists, puts them all in one place, so that your phone is like a safe space. Because I literally, like, more than 2 years on, I can't scroll back through my phone to find an unrelated photo because I'm too scared of stumbling across a photo from that life and from he and I's life and a photo of him. And
Okay.
I've been constantly for the whole 2 years, like anytime Facebook or social media pops up are like, this is where you were 5 years ago. Like, here's a memory. I'm like, hide, hide, do not show me this, stop. And it just keeps doing it. But I've been so strict on just like making sure I don't have I never check social media. I never look at photos, not once since the breakup. And complete radio silence, no contact was completely essential for me. And that's still going. But it's really tricky when like your
Yeah.
lives have been so entwined for so long and there's so many reminders. And so, you know, I almost want to just like pay a friend to sit down with my devices, but it would just take forever. Like it's years of memories and photos, but it's like I need that service.
Might be worth it if it's still in you. I bet a friend would just like doing it. Like if you have friends that truly love you and treat you like a friend, then I
Oh,
bet one of them would
pretty
do it.
tedious job, pretty time consuming. Maybe I'll ask. But yeah, it's really, really tough. And one of like my questions is what is a really common mistake that you see people making post breakup? And I imagine that, one answer to that would be that people kind of torture themselves by continuing to check their ex-partner's social media and look at old photos, read through old chats. Like I've got several friends that just really flagellate themselves with that and never appealed to me. That seems like I'm in enough pain enough. Like I'm already in enough pain. That seems like torture. But, is that a pretty common mistake
Yeah.
you see people making, or do you have others that you want to like illuminate for us?
Yeah, there's a couple. That
Mm.
one appealed to me. So after my wife left, so she mentioned before I got divorced when I was 23. We got married
Wow.
when I was 20, super young, and then divorced at 23. And we shared like a credit card app, just like as a married couple. But after we got divorced, I
Um,
was still on it for a little bit. And I remember I would check the credit card app just to see what she was like spending money on and
oh
then make up
God.
these hypothetical situations that would matter. Like probably every
I
20
cannot.
minutes for the entire. And so I totally understand if you're doing that, it's your brain trying to find
Mhm.
connection with the person still. But I was on like a camping trip because I just hung out with my family after the divorce. That was like all I could do. And I was on a camping trip and my dad saw me checking like every 5 seconds. So he like really encouraged me to delete it. And as soon as I did, I felt like
Ah,
extreme dread. It was really hard. I was like, I lost my
yeah.
last piece of connection. But after I made it through that, it felt a ton better. And that's one thing I've realized is like a lot of people ask, should I move on or should I wait for them? Like what are signs that I should wait for them, signs that I should move on? But as I've talked to people and as I've thought about it a lot, I don't think there's ever a reason not to move on. My like cool tagline I say always is move on unless they stop you. If you want them back, treat it as real as
Mm,
possible and move on as well as you can. That doesn't mean you have to start dating people. It just means it means you're responsible for liking your life again. So you've got to move on and start adding things into it so that you can be okay regardless of
mm,
what they do. But yeah, that's the first thing that people do at the beginning is holding on to little things, torturing themselves because they're searching for connection, but ripping the band-aid off really, really
mm,
does help. So yeah, that's the first mistake. But the other one is probably like not improving the
mhm,
life that you have and diving into a lot of signs about your ex and things that you can't really control. So a lot of people actually are good. They remove all that stuff. They're going no contact. They watch a lot of videos online, but then they get sucked into this trap of learning every single sign about what their ex is doing and what it might mean and things like that. And I make a lot of those videos because I know what it feels like to want those. And they do feel hopeful. Like if you see a video that's like your ex is going to post a ton after the breakup and that means that they're trying to get validation from other people and like if that happens that's usually what it means like they're not wrong but it's a trap you can get stuck in because it's not anything that you
mm,
can control. So again, if you're finding yourself diving really really deep into the science stuff, be kind to yourself. Realize this is your brain trying to find some sort of control, but then once you're aware of that, you get unstuck when you start shifting your attention towards things you can actually control in your life again, which is building up your relationships with your family, your friends, your hobbies, religious beliefs, or any sort of belief like that, work, school, and then self care, like taking, eating, going to the gym. Those types of things are what I work with clients on, and what the book is about, on how to build your
Mm.
life again. Because if you find yourself overthinking all the time and your brain can't get out of the past, what I found with most people is, if your past was better than your present, like if you look at it in
Yeah.
aggregate, in the past you have this amazing life, and then you have this love, and you have this partner in this future. If in the present all you've got is videos about signs and hope that maybe your ex will come back, you can't really expect your brain to not dwell and live in in the past, because it's
Yeah.
better. It's much brighter. It's a happier place to be. So as soon as you can work to make that present happier, or at least as happy as the past, then your brain's going to have a much easier time staying in the
Mm.
present and not going
Mm.
back to the past.
Yeah, I love that. Something that I was thinking as you were speaking is like, how do we, because obviously people have different ways of dealing with grief, and there can be just, I mean, what happened with me is just total collapse. Um for a period. And then other people kind of almost don't allow themselves time to grieve or to feel the feelings, and just throw themselves into like every single activity, hobby, travel, this, that. And they're kind of two ends of the spectrum in terms of like extreme, one or the other. And I'm wondering, like, obviously it's really healthy to kind of rebuild your life and make sure you focus on the things that top you up and that you feel very embodied doing, that make you feel you and make you feel nourished and enriched. But like, where's the line between getting on with things and trying to move on almost too quickly and not allowing yourself time to feel and to process and grieve, versus dwelling in that for probably way too long like I did? Like, how do we know,
Yeah.
like, is it still valuable to at least let yourself just fall apart for a little while in order to like fully feel it and then get back on the horse? Or like, yeah.
Yeah. I have an analogy for this one that I like to talk about. So, if you imagine three friends, and this is
Hmm.
going to be about what you just said, but people generally fall into these three camps. So, if you imagine three friends come up to a river and they need to cross it, they all have different plans on how to cross it. The first friend goes up to the river and just jumps in and like tries to swim, tries to make it. The current's too strong. He gets taken away, drowns. That's the end of friend one. Friend two. Friend two sees that that happens to friend one. So he's like, no, I'm just going to sit on the side. Like, this river will probably dry up eventually. I don't like it. I know it's too fast to swim across. So I'm just going to sit here. So he sits there for years until it rains and the river floods and he
Oof.
drowns too. And then friend three, he decides that, okay, I'm going to find some walking sticks. He takes one step into the river. Sometimes he has to like sure his footing, and as the current gets stronger, but every time he can, he takes a step forward, and then he
Mm.
eventually makes it across. So what people tend to do, they tend to do those three things. The first one, just jumping straight in, that's like just sitting in bed, feeling it like crazy, thinking about it all the time, watching a ton of videos, not really doing anything to better your life, wishing that your future would be saved by your ex coming back. It tends to, we love what we take care of, like what we do things for. If you keep your house clean, you're going to like your house more. So if you let yourself just waste away, usually your self-esteem wastes away with it, and you start to believe that you're not worth being with because the
Mm.
person left you. So that way doesn't really work. Way two is, if you just decide, I'm just going to like go to the gym every single day, or I'm going to get really, really into work, or I'm going to jump into another relationship and like forget about this one by being with someone else. What tends to happen is it actually does feel better for a little bit. Like, if you imagine that friend sitting on the side, he's dry, like things were okay, but eventually, like that's kind of what happened to me. Is right after my divorce, I jumped in another relationship pretty quickly, and I was fine. I felt great. I didn't really think about my ex-wife very much, but as soon as we started talking about getting married and what the future would look like, the river flooded, and I started just being very distant, having lots of fears, and it's because I never dealt with anything. And that's generally what happens with people who try to handle it that way. So the healthiest way, the way that actually works, is feel it and then
Mm,
modulate it with
mm,
actions, healthy distractions that are actions that
mm,
move you forward. So if you're going through life and all of a sudden you feel like it's really overcoming you, then sit there, feel it. You can cry about it. There's if you Google feel wheel online and you go to Google Images, there's lots of
mm,
this circle and it has all these different emotions. You can look at that, name what you're feeling. That helps you process it faster. But then after it's been a little bit and you're realizing that you're just spiraling, what my therapist had me do when I was going through that is have a list on your phone of different activities that you can do quickly. So on mine I had like play guitar, ride my longboard, call my mom, listen to a song. I closed my eyes and would just point to one of those, and then I had to do that thing. And then it got me out of the state, got me doing something. Another thing that helps people is having some sort of tangible goal you're working towards. So you can be like, okay, give myself 20 minutes to cry about it, feel terrible. And then I go and do my goal. Like I'm learning guitar, I'm going to the gym, I'm trying to bench 225, or I've got to go be with
mm,
family. So I do both. Yeah, you give yourself time to feel it, but you modulate it with healthy things in
mm,
between so that you're still doing things to take care of yourself and build a
mm.
life.
Yeah, very sensible advice. Um, I've I I was definitely number one. Number one, just drowning in it on the daily, feeling absolutely disgusting about myself, increasingly the longer I rotted in bed. But now I'm definitely more in that sort of middle ground. Something though that comes up for me with this is like there's a lot of intersectionality involved that just means there's so much nuance in how people respond and deal with breakups. And um, for example, for me, I was severely burnt out. I experienced complex and prolonged grief, which I didn't know about, but now I do. And I was really depressed. And so my mental health challenges and my burnout was creating this like ventral vagal shutdown because of the grief and the way I experienced grief and the loss of literally every single pillar of my, I had to move across the country and rebuild my life in a new city. And it was huge, like job, everything kind of all collapsed at once. Um, and so there were like intersecting factors that meant I knew what was good for me. I knew I should be getting out and exercising and doing a hobby and connecting with community. It's like I know the theory and I can coach other people through it. But for me to do it, there was no motivation because I was so cripplingly depressed and burnt out that there was no energy in the tank or motivation or like will, which was really intense. And I'm wondering, like, how do intersecting factors like maybe attachment styles play into how people handle breakups?
Pause.
Yeah.
Can I turn this light on real
Yeah,
quick so you
yeah.
can see me? It's getting darker. Okay. Okay. Let's see how that looks.
It's better.
Okay, I'm gonna do different. Do that. Okay, that's pretty good. Well, be a little bit lower. The sun like the sun sets right now, and it just like
Yeah,
blinds me
that's
or
tough.
makes it dark. So okay. Um. So attachment styles, they do affect it, but let's talk about hope and attachment styles. So with attachment styles, usually what I see is those who have an avoidant attachment style are friend two, where they just like
Mhm.
dive into something else and then it hits them later. Anxious attachment style usually become super self-helpy, like they learn everything they can and also get like super into the signs and become detectives and all of that kind of stuff. Or they take hyper accountability, so they will like look at their relationship and then see everything that was wrong, and where it should be like some of it is their partner's fault and some of it was their fault, they just take all of it on themselves and say, how can I improve myself through this? Because if I can heal myself enough, then they'll be with me again. So that can be pretty hard too. But and then secure obviously usually ends up
Yeah.
doing the best. They usually take proper accountability, all the boring healthy stuff.
Fuck those guys.
But one thing, yeah, one thing I found for the motivation piece. So this is something that helped me a lot in the beginning because I was like that too. I felt that everything
Yeah.
was meaningless. Like I just felt like I didn't really have a future. And I just wanted my ex to come back so that she could bring it back to me. One thing that I saw one time was become one of those like random videos I was watching online about how to get your ex back said become her best option and then she'll come back. And that one just gave me hope and spoke to me and got me doing things. So as I've been learning more about this, I've actually found that they've scanned brains of people who go through extreme loss. And this is true with death, but also breakups and divorce. And the brains of these people are actually highly motivated, extremely motivated, some of the most motivated brains possible, but it's to get their partner back. So, like, whether from death, where it's just like, I'm going to deny that they're actually gone, or I'm going to just dive into every
Mm,
memory possible, or breakups, highly, highly motivated that they're driving past their work or learning everything they can about attachment styles to teach their partner one day, or reading several books. The motivation is very high. It's just pinpointed usually towards something that's not very helpful.
yep.
So, one thing that I found is at the very beginning, if you can't get out of bed or you can't move at all, you can harness that motivation and actually use it towards helpful means. So, back to the story of me watching those videos, I watched them and I was like, okay, I need to become her
Mm,
best option now, and then she'll love me again. So, at the beginning, when I was doing things, it was all for her. I but it led to me. I was living with my parents after the divorce, and then the year I dated that second girl, I stayed living at my parents because I just like focused
mm,
all my attention on her. But then I was like, okay, I've got to move. I've got to get a job that I really love. I've got to go to the gym. I've got to get all these friends. I've got to go on vacations, and I need to build myself so that I'm not this little sad puddle because she's not going to be attracted to that. And that was all. Like that was all I cared about at the beginning was like I need to impress her. But what happened was because I was doing all of these things to take care of myself and make my life better, eventually like 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, 5 months in, I found out that she was dating someone else, and it was hard for like a second, but it was confusing because I sat there and I thought I'd be destroyed when I saw that happened. But because I had spent all that time and used all that motivation to get her back to build this life that I loved, I actually just loved my
mm,
life. And it was really confusing, but I was like, no, I'm okay. So that's what I tell people when they're wondering like, should I hope? I ask, what are the fruits of the hope in your life? Like, what is it leading to? Does the hope that they'll come back motivate you to do all these good actions to make your life better? Then cool. Use it. Lean into that. Or does the hope cause you to feel terrible and you're just like, all I can do is hope. All I can do is sit here and do nothing. Then kill it.
mm,
Accept like radical accept that they're never going to come back. But do things based on like what's going to produce actions? What's going to give me the rocket fuel that I need to make the changes in my life that need to happen? And I wouldn't be ashamed if it is hope at
mm,
the beginning. That's
mm.
okay. It works.
Yeah, I love that. And it's sort of similar advice, like, well, not advice, but an opinion that I hold with regards to like motivation and like its origin. Like, if people have a crush or they're newly dating someone or they've got a bit of romantic intrigue going on, often they're more likely to have the motivation to go exercise or eat healthy or go do a hobby or do something that makes them feel, more robust and exciting and lovable, and they treat themselves better. And it's like, I think people can have a bit of shame or guilt around that being the motivating factor, is like it's coming from an external source because you want to be attractive or, attract this person. Um, but I'm like, well, as long as you're realistic about it with yourself, it's at least getting you off the couch and doing something. And the regular practice of doing those things will actually help your mental health and your self-esteem and your confidence and generate more motivation and more drive to do it intrinsically. And whether it's an external motivating factor that actually gets you up and off the couch in the first place, or out of bed in the first place post breakup, or, when there's some crush energy going around, is it the worst thing if it's at least getting you moving?
I don't think so. I think that it's like two levels of improvement. It's of course it's way better if your motivation is internal. Of course it's way better that you want to accomplish things for yourself. But you can view it
Mm,
as stairs. Like if you're like down here like on the ground accomplishing nothing and you can't even get out of bed, then looking at the highest stair and being like this is what I need to get to, I can't do anything in between, will just intimidate you and make you not want to get started. One example is like with this is going to be true for some people but not other people, but like with medications, like anxiety medications, like a lot of people will take them as something external to help them manage events in their lives, and then once they have that back to baseline, then they establish proper habits in their lives that allow them to get off of the medication and get it more naturally from just internal actions that they're producing. So I think you could view it
totally.
similar to that.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. Are you ready for the segment Get Pregnant and Die? Do
Sure.
you have a story for us about your sex education?
Yeah. So I grew up in like, and I still am. So like, I'm an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and like, it's really important to me. And because of that, like, I had sex 0 times
Mhm.
before getting married, not at all. And then I got married, and then all of a sudden you're just like supposed to learn it. And I do think that my parents probably told me some stuff, but I don't really remember. I assume they did, but nothing that I remember. The only thing I really remember about sex education was like in health class in 8th grade, like teaching like
Mhm.
how it worked. so so I knew that, but that was basically all. So when I got married, like we would have sex and stuff and whatever, but it became a major problem because towards the end, like I wanted to have sex a lot more than she wanted to have sex, and I felt really rejected. And like there was one point even like I like I got super logical about it. I made a graph one time to like so like we used to have
Oh
it this much, and
no.
now it's this, and it's this
Oh
downward trend,
no.
all this kind of stuff. And we got divorced, and then I got married again later, to my wife that we're married now, and she ended up teaching me like all these different ways of like how female orgasms work and things like that that I just
Mm,
did not know about. So in my first marriage, I did not know any of that stuff, so we would just kind of have
mhm.
sex for me, and and like now I get to do it in more of like a mutual experience. So yeah, I don't think I was really taught that, and I wish I would have been, because I think it would have been like
Yeah.
better for both parties. But I'm really grateful that my wife was like brave enough to bring that up and
Mm.
teach me things like that so that she could
Yeah,
enjoy it more
thank
too.
God. What a huge service she's done. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's probably super relatable for a lot of people, especially men. Like, yeah, we definitely don't get taught about female pleasure. And most of the time, heterosexual sex is for the man, until they've kind of been taught otherwise, which sometimes doesn't happen ever.
It's much simpler for us, and I think unless we're taught otherwise, we just kind of assume that women are the same, and that it's just like, well, awesome, cool, good job, but it's more complicated.
Cool. All right. So I want to chat a little bit about like what can keep people, maybe some common things that keep people stuck. Um, for instance, people feeling like maybe they need closure from the ex. Is that necessary, or is that a
Yeah,
myth? Like, what are some other things that might keep people stuck? Like there's things that I feel like people keep rinsing and repeating in their head that keep them stuck in this pattern or this story that, yeah, is doing a disservice to them and prevents them from kind of going to the next stage of acceptance or healing or moving forward.
yep. So this is going to be there's a concept called Zeigarnik loops, where it's called the Zeigarnik effect is when you have some sort of loop in your head that never got finished, and then your brain just puts a lot of mental energy into trying to figure out what the
Mm.
ending is. And it's actually it was a study that was done, I think it's like 60s or 70s, but Dr. Zagernick was this professor at Harvard, and they discovered that even if you like leave your room messy or you don't finish a movie, then your brain continually puts effort into figuring out what it would have been like, or why it's not clean yet. So with something as important
Mm.
as a relationship, we just do that
Mm.
a thousandfold. So with closure, one of the reasons it does work, if you can have it, is you figure out what happened on both sides and then you feel like the story closes. So if it works, I think it's awesome. The problem is that it doesn't happen, like probably most of the time. There's a lot of reasons why it doesn't happen. One, your ex might not know all the reasons why the relationship ended. They might not have been as introspective as they would have needed to be. Maybe they just felt bad and they can't even pinpoint why, so they left. So if you try to drill them for closure, you just won't get an answer because the answer doesn't exist. Maybe they don't want to tell you why because they
Mm.
don't want to hurt your feelings. Maybe they don't want to face the confrontation that would require. So then you're never going to get it too. So there needs to be other ways to find it because in most situations, you're just not going to get it from your partner. So a couple ways are, if you think about what things you did gain from it and you make it into your own narrative of why it happened, and you can find a sufficiently powerful enough reason of why this relationship meant something in your life, it closes the loop and
Mm.
you can let go. So one thing for me is, like, the example I always use is I worked really really hard to get into medical school before I started doing this. I graduated with a pre med degree. I worked in a doctor's office for 4 years. I got 97th percentile in the MCAT. I got a 3.9 GPA in college. I started this nonprofit, all these things. And then I applied to 50 medical schools and got rejected from
Oh.
all of them. And I did not know why. And I still don't really know why. I have a lot of friends, all my friends, because we're all going to school together. They all got in and they all had worse scores than me in all of these things, and I could never figure out why. And even I even paid like this $5,000 coaching service to help me get into medical school, and they were like on the Johns Hopkins board of acceptance people, and they looked at my application. They're like, "You'll get into any school in the nation. Like you'll have your pick based on all these things you did." And I was like, "Cool." And then I applied 25 schools with their
Ah.
guidance, zero acceptances, 25 rejection letters. So after that, I had no closure about it, and they don't tell you why
Mm.
they reject you either. You just get no. Actually, you don't even get no. You don't get a yes. So I waited like 2 years to just get these yeses and got none and had no idea why. So after that, I just felt
Mm.
really bitter. I'd go to like hospitals whenever like I was sick or my wife was sick or something, and I'd look at the doctors and be like, why was this
Mm.
opportunity taken from me? I worked really hard and I didn't like not give my full effort. I tried really hard to get in and I wasn't good enough to get in. So then it wasn't until like a year ago that I looked at it, and I looked at what I do now, and I looked at how I like my life now, and I thought, okay, when I was also an adjunct professor, so I did that, and it taught me how to teach skills online, break down complicated things into simple, understandable analogies that could help people learn stuff. I learned how to study really, really hard. I studied for 7 hours a day for 9 months straight for the MCAT to get that good score. So I learned how to be self motivated and learn things on my own without guidance. I learned how to not quit when it gets hard and stay consistent. And what I really wanted out of medical school was I really wanted to teach people things that would help them, and like be able to break down concepts that would help someone in a crisis have hope so they can continue with their lives. And I do all that now. So I was able to put together all these things so the effort didn't feel like it was wasted, and I could see how it brought me to where I
Mm.
am today. And when I did that, it was like it freed me. It made it all make sense. What that I didn't
Mm.
waste my time. So if you're just out of a relationship and you're thinking, I wasted these years of my life, I feel like an idiot. I was a fool. They tricked me this whole entire time. It was never real for them. Go and look how those things prepare you for the future. And if you already are in the future and it's still having a hard time, look at your future that you're in now, or the present you're in now, and then look at the past and try to pull things from the relationship and weave them into your narrative so that it makes sense why you have what you have now, and make it so that you realize that you would not have what you have now. You only have it because you went through all that stuff. And as soon as you get a sufficiently logical story that it makes sense to you, a lot of the energy is going to dissipate from the past and you'll be able to let go of it. So that's one thing. That's with closure. The other thing that I see that holds people back a lot is lack
Mm.
of forgiveness. And I like being really radical on this one. I like saying forgive regardless, always, regardless of anything they do to you, always. Some people don't like that because they think like there's certain things that should not be forgiven that you should hold on to. And I have one exception is if not forgiving, like if they're still in your life and you feel like if you were to drop some of those walls, then you're going to let them hurt you again, then keep the walls there. But if they're like gone and you just think about it all the time and you carry this rage with you, then I say, regardless of what they do, offer them forgiveness. And what that means is not what they did was okay in any way. It doesn't mean that you're going to allow that from anyone else, but it means that you're not going to stay angry at them anymore because the anger is
Mm.
damaging your life. I like to view it that like whatever they did to you, whether they cheated on you or like offered some sort of abuse or just broke up with you, it's not your fault. You don't deserve it, but it's your job now to move forward in the best way possible. In the same way that like if somebody was in an accident and like let's say you got hit by a car and then you got your leg injured, that's not your fault, but now it's your responsibility to go to physical therapy and learn how to walk again. So I to me, if something terrible happened to you and you say, okay, I need to forgive the person that hurt me to move on from this, the way to do that is to look at them, have some compassion on them, maybe think about, okay, they treated me horrible, but I know that they grew up in a horrible thing, so they're just this scared little kid, they're not this powerful villain. They did something terrible, but I can see that it was probably because of where they came from. Once you can break them out of this really powerful role and just view them as a scared little kid that did something because of how they grew up, then you can say, okay, you know what? I forgive them. I realize that that's where they came from, and I forgive them for that. And once you do that, you might have to choose that every day. You might have to keep doing it over and over and over again. But it's a lot lighter than the alternative. I've seen a lot of people hold on to the past and refuse to forgive. And usually what happens, they think they're being just. They think that if I'm not letting this person off the hook, they never apologized, they never did anything. But what ends up happening usually is like to justify the fact that they're not letting go, their brain actually makes the person into a worse version than ever existed in reality. They get worse and worse over time as they get have more and more bitterness in their lives. And it just ends up making it harder to trust people in the future, harder to open themselves up to new people in
Mm.
the future. And they don't deserve
Mm.
that. They're the victim. So, in order to free
Yeah.
themselves, yeah, forgiveness, in my opinion, is also required.
Yeah, and for those that hear the word forgiveness and that's really sticking in your craw, or, in cases of like really severe abuse, narcissistic abuse, things like that, um, which I sort of come across in my work a lot. Yeah, maybe this step that feels more manageable isn't necessarily full forgiveness yet, but it's like letting it go, not giving it any more energy, not lugging it around with you and wearing it as a badge. Um, I think like, yeah, maybe that feels more realistic for some than the word and the connotations around like forgiveness. Um, to just kind of like let it go, stop dwelling on it, stop thinking about it, stop giving it energy and like reinforcing that bitterness and that victim kind of mindset through like repetition. Um, because, yeah, like it's not yours to lug around and still be affected by it after the fact, like you got out of there. So, and something that you were sort of talking about prior to the forgiveness piece made me think of something that Gillian Turecki talks about, which is like breaking the sort of cycle of telling the same story about the relationship and the breakup, like to yourself, just almost like repeating it over and over and ruminating and obviously telling it when you talk to friends and stuff, but like in your own head, repeating that same story keeps you really stuck and can really double down on some unhelpful narratives. And, we often vacillate between feeling victimized by the other person and feeling like we're the villain and blaming ourselves. And like you were saying with the attachment styles, like, the anxiously attached might be more prone to psychoanalyzing every single tiny little way that, their actions or their patterns sabotage the relationship and what you could have done differently, or, end up feeling, I mean, often the story that we tell ourselves and the meaning that we give the story about the breakup and the relationship winds up with us concluding that we're unlovable, or we're not enough, or we're broken, we're inadequate, we're a failure, we couldn't make it work, we couldn't make them stay. And so, like, Gillian talks about a way to kind of break that cycle of telling the same story, by like writing out the story from several different perspectives, like as though multiple different people were like retelling the story through their own lens, which kind of helps you stop romanticizing your ex or the person that might have broken your heart, and see them more clearly and see the whole relationship more clearly and your roles in that. Like, it's very hard to have any realistic sort of perspective when you're in the thick of it. So if you stop kind of giving meaning to it and re-traumatizing yourself with the same old story on repeat, you can actually start, telling the story. Like, maybe you write down the story from the take of a wise elder or like a grandparent that you trust and that's got a lot of life experience. Maybe you tell it from the perspective of a best friend or a sibling, or maybe even like your higher self or your intuition. um, and like explore the narrative from different angles to think about what else it could all mean, rather than really just like reinforcing because generally, like you said, you can't trust your mind, especially when you're in that amount of pain. um yeah, and so that I haven't actually done that exercise. I probably should. Maybe I will after this. But I was like, oh, that makes sense. I can't be fucked doing it. I don't want to do it. But like, actually, maybe now I'm ready to do it.
Now, one thing I've never thought of that exercise specifically, but one thing that's very similar is I talk to people a lot about how to date after heartbreak and how to tell if you're when you're going on dates, how to see, is the person I'm dating actually over
Mm.
their ex and ready to be here or not. And one of the things that I tell people to look for is when they tell the story of their past partner and what it looked like to date them and stuff, do they tell the story like their ex is the main character in the story, or are they the main character in the story? And I think that could probably be
Wow.
applied to this too. But what it looks like examples are, if you're telling the story of your breakup, let's say that you're that person that you want to show up well on dates, or even in your own head while you're telling the story to yourself, like Jillian's example, is when you tell it, is it focused on your ex? If it were a movie, is your ex the main character? Do you tell it like, my ex did this and this and this and this and this, and now my life is terrible? And like, then they went on this and then they dated this other person and now they're all happy and I'm here sad. So like in that story, your ex is the person who's driving everything. They're the actor in the story and you're kind of just like there getting acted upon. Or when you tell the story, is it like, yes, my ex did these things. It was terrible, but then I picked up this skill. I learned about my attachment style. I and entered the dating pool. It was hard at the beginning, but then I learned how to enjoy it again. In that story, you're the main character. You don't have to hide the details. You don't have to say that your ex was this amazing person if they weren't. You don't have to say that like they didn't cheat on you if
Mm.
if they did, but you're the main character. They're a little part of the story. They're part of the plot that you had to react to, but you're the
Mm.
one that it's focused on.
I love that. That's great. That's so practical. Because, like, yeah, getting back into dating post breakup is a whole thing. And it's, it's really useful to actually like pay attention to how someone, I mean, I get so much information and like data collection from hearing how someone speaks about their ex in general. But yeah, if they're kind of like
Yeah.
not that far out from the breakup, in my head, I'm like, oh, like, are they ready? Are they over it? Is this going to be a rebound? And so that's really useful to kind of like collect a bit of data about that. I love that. Um, And yeah, speaking of time frames and stuff, everyone's so different. Do you feel like time is just a necessary part of, like, we can do all the work and all of the exercises and the processing or whatever, but like time is actually necessary to like soften things, and that maybe we all need like a certain amount of time, or do you think that it's just really individual? Mhm.
Required and individual. So my favorite example for this is some people just try to speed run it and just heal as fast as they can. And they're like, if I just get
Mhm.
6 therapists and read Let Them Theory and Attached and Secure Love and every single book ever, then I won't have to deal with this. And you can speed it up a little bit. But my favorite example of how to view this is if you're making a cake, like you can't just turn the oven up to 1,000 degrees and the cake will get done faster. It'll just burn. And that's what tends to happen to these people is they learn like crazy until they're
Mm.
just burned
Mm.
out and tired, and they still feel sad, and they're just shameful about it and sad. So yes, time is going to be a required piece, and if it's taking time, you're doing it
Mm.
right. That's how it goes. For how long it takes, it does vary. So and it also varies in relationships. So you can date someone for 1 year, be long distance, see them 4 times, or you can date them for 2 months and hang out every single second of every single day and be a lot more depth in that relationship than the year one was. So in moving on, there's those things that can keep you stuck, like we talked about, but it's going to be individual for, like, did they leave you
Mm.
without reason? That's
Mm.
going to make it take longer as you process and let go of that, make it make sense and close the Zagernick loops. How deeply were you invested? That's going to make it longer if you were invested super deep, shorter if you weren't. Do you have other things to fall back on? Like, do you have a group of friends or family? Do you have your own life that has a direction outside of the relationship? Are you working towards a career or school or something like that? Or was your entire life
Mm.
centered in this and now you're completely drowning in limbo? That's going to make it take longer. So, in general, I'd say most people are like 3 months to a year ish. But if you're outside of that, then it's probably one of those
Mm.
factors that makes sense,
Mm.
and it's okay. Like, that's just the journey that
Mhm.
you're going through.
What do you think about like people who just sort of hop from one relationship to the next, or and it's totally accidental sometimes, like it's just that the timing of it, they just happen to meet someone that is incredibly amazing and compatible, and it's all feeling so aligned and wonderful. Like perhaps the previous relationship that's ending had been maybe sort of on the decline for a while. Like, do you feel like it's ever too soon to jump into the next thing? Like, is that preventing us from actually processing and grieving a breakup because we're sort of masking that grief with a fresh, new, exciting connection? Like, do you generally advise um, against those sort of rebound relationships that maybe feel very big and very real to people, or do you think sometimes we can't really control the timing and you do just meet like a total epic human that is right for you, and you kind of just can't deny it when that happens?
I'm definitely
Mhm.
more on the side of waiting. So I think that sometimes, if you ever say sometimes, like of course it's going to happen for some people, but when giving advice, I think you go for this is generally what's going to happen. So with dating immediately, there's two major problems that can happen, and I'm saying this as someone who did this, so that's why I'm kind of biased. But the first one is it tricks you into thinking that
Mhm.
you're better when you're not. It feels amazing. That's why, like, nobody goes into a rebound thinking, I'm using this to get over the next person. They go in thinking, I met the love of my
Mm.
life. This is incredible. Everyone. That's why you do it. And that's why they work so well. They do convince you that you're not actually struggling, but only for a little bit until that fades and you start getting out of the butterfly stage and getting into the regular throes of a relationship. Then you start to realize, oh, this thing reminds me of my ex. Oh, when I see this restaurant, I'm really sad about them still. Oh, when we talk about the future that I was supposed to have with this other person, I feel tightness in my chest and I'm avoiding them and
Mm.
distancing for some reason. Why? It's because you didn't face any of the grief.
Mm.
That's what happened to me. Second reason is we tend to fall in love with people that are in the same place in life that we are.
Mm.
It's a psychological term called empathic resonance. They did this study with people where they put people on a, a bridge that was really solid, and then they put another group of people on a bridge that would swing. And then they asked those people, did you like the people around you? Did you relate to them? Did you become friendly? Did you think any of the like girls were attractive and all that kind of stuff? The people on the swinging bridge had much higher scores for liking the people around them than the people on the still bridge, because they were feeling the same types of things. They had some adrenaline, some fear, and they related to the people through that. Same thing like people who go through boot camp together in the military, or if you've ever been through like a really close thing, you really relate to those people because you're feeling the same emotions. So if you're going into the dating pool and you're extremely heartbroken and you're saying, I just need to get out there, I just need to get my mind off of my ex, then it's a higher likelihood, not for sure. Like again, you could luck out and just find someone perfect for you, but I'd say you're more in danger of finding someone who's
Mm.
also not ready, who's also really, really struggling at that time and feeling an extremely close connection that you relate to. And and maybe that's the connection you have. And then you get past that, you move on, and then all of a sudden you find that you don't
Mm.
have as much in common. So to me, I like learn who you are on your own, build a life that you like, get to the point that you don't have to be totally over them. Like I think that's too big of an ask. Get to the point that you're happy enough that if they came back, then you would be hesitant to let them back unless things would change. You're happy enough that you're not going to throw your life away for the same relationship that just
Mm.
broke you. And then start dating again. And you're going to compare new people to your ex, and that doesn't mean that you're not over them. It means you have a human brain that is wired to find patterns, and that's what humans do. And that's okay. But be sure that you have some sort of foundation on your own that you really truly enjoy, that you would not trade.
Mm. I love that. That's, yeah, such beautiful advice. Um, Really quickly, like, what are your thoughts on breakup sex? Like, why is that? I know there's like mechanisms in place that make that so appealing and addictive, but I think we can get into this like really
Yeah.
chaotic cycle, like drama cycle with that. And people might read
Yeah.
into the chemistry of that more than what is actually going on, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea. So sex releases one of the largest amounts of oxytocin that you can have from any activity, and that's a chemical that bonds you to someone, makes you feel extremely close to them. So you're going to be feeling physically in your mind that this person's really important, that you're really close to them, but then another part of your mind is going to realize, oh, we're broken up and there's all of these problems that we don't know how to communicate through, and they're also like we're dating other people and all this stuff. So it just creates a big cloud of confusion, and when there's a cloud of confusion, it usually just turns to fights, yelling at each other, pulling further away, reacting based on your attachment system. So, like really clinging on or pushing away. You're not acting from a clear space. So, all breakup sex introduces is confusion. Doesn't help you get back together, doesn't help you move on, just leaves you more confused.
Totally agree with that. Like, obviously, when we're heartbroken or we haven't seen someone, we're having withdrawal from that person and their love and affection and all of that beautiful oxytocin. Um, it feels like a massive relief when we get a supply of that again. So it's like we're just back on the hook. We're feeling like, oh, thank God. It signals safety, it soothes the nervous system, like all of the kind of brain chemistry involved in like really good sex and intimacy. It's pretty fucking addictive. And so then when you haven't had it for a while and you have really heightened stress, because you're going through a breakup and you're having to like, go through this separation and this disconnection. When you connect again, even if it's briefly, it's like, oh, thank goodness, this is familiar. This is a relief. This is, so it's very, moreish. But yeah, I'm a big believer in the like radio silence, like go cold turkey, really try hard not to reoffend or relapse, as my friends and I call it.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I'm wondering, like we've kind of touched on like a bunch of really practical things. Is there anything that we've missed out on, or any gaps that you'd like to just fill, like maybe something you want to leave people with? Um, yeah, especially someone who maybe is like really in the midst of it, feeling like they're never going to get over this one, and this one's different to the last ones. This one's the big one, and because
Yeah.
that's really where I was at. Um, what do you want to say to people, and what are some practical steps that we haven't covered, if there is anything?
To me, the my favorite way to think about that issue, because I feel like if you're having a hard time getting over your breakup, it's probably because you're thinking that. Like, this is the best connection I've ever had, therefore it's the best connection I'm ever going to have, and it cannot be replaced. We spent so many amazing memories together. I can't imagine anything better than this.
Mhm.
So with my life again, I told you a lot of this, but I had an entire plan for it. I was married, I had a dog, I was going to have kids, I was going to go to medical school, become an eye surgeon, and then everything got ripped away and flopped. Every single piece. I went
Mm.
from all of that to living at my parents' house with 50 rejection letters and no girlfriend or wife, and just felt like everything I had built was useless now. Like my college degree, I could go to medical school, which I just got rejected from, or I could be a lab assistant, which I did not want to do. So everything felt useless and terrible, and all I wanted back was my old life, because I knew that that would be the best. But the thing that helped me a lot now, as I can look back, is the life I have now, that I get to help people through breakups. I have a daughter, I have a wife, and I love them. I would never trade this for that. The thing that I thought that I wanted more than anything, that I would like chop my leg off for, or like, I don't know. I don't think there is a thing I would not have done at that time to get all that back. I would never trade it ever. So the thing that I like to believe now is, you I like the humility of believing that you have no idea what the happiest plan or path for your life can be, and approaching the future with curiosity like that, being like, I've lived this amount of years, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and I know a lot, but I'm not all knowing. I don't know everything that can happen, and I have faith that in the future it can be better than it was in the past, because it has been in other areas and it is for a lot of other people. So why would I be special that I just know everything now? And that gives me hope to get through hard things.
Mm. Do you have a TMI story for us?
Yeah.
Maybe something crazy out of pocket that you did when you were distraught after a breakup.
Yeah. So I was married and then I got divorced, and then like a month after I got divorced, I got another girlfriend off a dating app, and then we dated for 10 months, and then she wanted to break up with me. But the breakup wasn't like, I was like begging and begging and begging, so I eked out like another week after the breakup that we were going to like consider things, but she was done. She didn't want to consider things. I think I just begged enough that I got this week. So we got to like, we were going to talk on the Saturday, and we got to Thursday, and I couldn't sleep. I was waking up every hour like most people are after a breakup. And I saw at like 2 a.m., I think, that she said, "No, we're not actually going to talk on Saturday. We're actually just done." So immediately, I texted her a bunch of times. She didn't reply. So I got dressed and I drove an hour south to where she lived. At 3 a.m., I got there, and then I waited outside and just like asked and asked and asked if she'd come. She wasn't answering the phone. So I went in through the garage door because I knew the password, and then knocked on her bedroom door and asked her if she would marry me.
Oh, oh my
She
God.
told me at the time the reason she was breaking up was because I wasn't ready to get married, but I found out it was something different later. But like,
Ah,
I bought a little silicone ring from Walmart because nowhere else was open. I went there and I had this list of 50 reasons why I would marry her and why she was amazing, and she was just ice cold and wouldn't didn't want to hear
oh,
anything. And of course, like, why would you? I just like woke you up at 3 a.m. and I just showed up at your house. But
yeah,
that's
whoa.
the craziest I got. And then I just drove home super, super sad and felt destroyed. But yeah,
Oh,
that felt like it would work.
Oh my God, yeah, there's something very manic about the picture of you like driving and buying this ring and like coming up with these reasons and be like, it's almost we're kind of sold
It
this
works in movies.
idea. Sorry?
It works in movies. Like
Well, that's what I
it's
was going to say. We're sold this idea in movies that, like, if you're just persistent enough and if you just, like, do some grand romantic gesture and you just completely ignore all of the woman's boundaries and, like, rock up, but it's all like, it's basically stalking what you see
yeah,
in the movies and it works. And it's like, we get told that that is the ticket. And it's like, holy fuck, like, we've really been misled yeah, how especially how like men in particular are encouraged to like go to those lengths and not take no for an answer, and it's like actually like so deeply problematic and contributes to rape culture and stuff. But like, you were fucking 23, 24 or something, like super young, like really romantic, really heartbroken, would have seemed like a great idea at the time.
yep, wasn't. And I've talked to. I'm not alone in that, and neither are you if you're listening. Like I'd say probably half of my clients that I have done something to that level. Like
Yeah.
restraining orders after breakups are common. I
Yeah.
see a lot of those, and it's totally because of that. It feels like you just need to, and it's the motivation I was talking about earlier. Like you're super
True.
motivated to do whatever you can, move heaven and earth to make it happen. But
Mm,
like people are people, and they have choices, and you can't just like muscle your way through their agency. They still have it.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, like when you're in that much pain and your world's turned upside down, that's the danger zone for being in like such an altered state that you will act ridiculously or, dangerously or whatever. And it's something that like I just kept like coming back to after my breakup, like when it was, I was in the thick of it, was like I was somehow like very rational and very grounded in like I'm going to conduct myself in like immaculately through this. I'm not going to do the thing that I actually want to do, which is crazy and not respecting his boundaries and not, taking no for an answer. I'm going to actually like act from my higher self, even though it's the hardest possible thing to do right now. And was only possible because, I was in my 30s. Like it wasn't like my breakups when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
Um, and I am really proud of myself the way that I kind of handled it. And, I made it easier for him, even though he was the one breaking up with me. Um, yeah, I didn't make it any harder than it needed to be because that's a really tricky, it's hard to be the breaker upper and it's hard to be the one being broken up with. Like they're different flavors of awful. And I recognize that. And I haven't handled the breakup personally for myself very well. Like I've been a fucking wreck, but I'm very proud of myself how I conducted myself when we were sort of, we still had to live together for like over a month,
Wow.
interstate, like after the breakup had happened, because obviously we had to uncouple and there was a lot to organize and there was, a lot of logistical factors involved that needed to be taken care of. And so we were still best friends,
Yeah.
and did it with a lot of love. But yeah, God, so much, every fiber of my being wanted to just do the most extreme shit.
That's respectable. I did the other one.
Totally understandable. Hey, you were super young. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. Like, loved this chat. Super, super validating and practical. I hope that that's given people some like helpful next steps. Something that I kind of want to like leave people with is that, you did the best that you could. You did what you could with the emotional tools and capacity that you had. Um, what your ex did, it can feel so personal, but like they were also doing what they could, like the best that they could generally. Like some people are just fucking the worst, but most of the time we're just doing the best we can with the tools that we have. And yeah, sometimes we just can't make something work because of either a lack of tools or capacity, or the timing is wrong, or a number of factors. But also, like, maybe you just weren't meant to work out and you weren't right for each other. And so after enough time has passed and enough grieving has happened and everything like that, and you're feeling robust enough to begin reflecting, um, it's really helpful to like pull out some of the lessons and some of the things you learned about yourself. You know, you learned about yourself in relationship, you learned about your needs and your boundaries and what you actually require in your next relationship. Like, if you can get to a place where this is a really valuable opportunity to collect more data and to get to know yourself better, um, that is something positive you can take away from a very, very awful, painful experience. Is there
Yeah.
anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's amazing. I think that the last thing I'd leave is remind yourself to be kind to yourself during this. Your
Mhm.
thing at the beginning, like that you keep calling a rant, it was awesome. I think that realize that it's okay. Like no matter how long this is taking you, it's okay. Be sure to look at the things like, are you actually detoxing from your ex? Are you actually building a life you like? Like, are you doing the things that should speed it up? But then if it's taking you a long time, falling in love with yourself, it starts by being kind to yourself. You're not going to
Mm.
fall in love with yourself if you're shaming yourself about how long it's taking you. So
Mm.
be kind, and that'll help get you started. So, yeah, I would just echo
Mm.
the stuff you said in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, I'm going to put the links to your work in the show notes. And for the listeners, if you pre order Cole's book at the moment, you'll receive chapter one and a secret chapter that will never be released as soon as you pre order. So I'll put those links in as well. Yeah, really appreciate your time and your vulnerability and your expertise today, Cole.
Thank you. It was fun.